It is cold. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this cold and snowy evening. It is 6 o'clock, so I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Right now, there are 4 board members present. I will take a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. The next item is 3A, public comment. Casey, are there any public comments this evening?
We do not have any.
As a reminder, anyone wishing to provide public comments should complete the request to submit comments form online. This form will need to be completed by 1 p.m. on Wednesday, the day of the board meeting. Next is the consent agenda. Sorry. Casey, my thing is not.
You want me to read it?
Nope, there it is. The items listed on the consent agenda are considered by the Board of Education to be routine business items. Approval of the items may be made by a single motion, second, and majority vote with no separate discussion of any item listed. Should a member of the board desire to discuss any item at his or her request, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. What are the wishes of the board?
I move to adopt the consent agenda as submitted.
I second.
Motion passes 5-0.
And thank you to everyone that has donated to support our students. We have a lot of donations on the consent agenda this week. So thank you everyone in our community for your generosity. Next is item 6A, update from KC Pro regarding Mary Herbert Education Center building evaluation.
Okay. Mr. Corey Nicolette, Director of Maintenance and Grounds, is here, as well as Rob Kramer from KC Pro, to share a report on an update on Mary Herbert Education Building.
Evening. So, December of 2023, we had KC Pro do the measuring, and then we had them do measuring again December 2024. So, right at 12 months difference. He spoke to you last February about the results of that, so he's going to speak to you tonight just about the differences he's seen and a quick rundown of kind of what he found. And then I'll get a little more in depth afterwards, so we'll let him give you the rundown of the differences.
Good evening. So yeah, on the 12th, I met with Corey again to reshoot all the elevations of exactly what we shot the first time. And basically all the columns that we shot on the north side, and when I say columns, I'm talking about through the center of the structure, the hallway area. The north side appeared to be pretty much right on as it was a year ago. On the south side, most of it stayed fairly accurate to what we originally had shot until we got almost exactly across the hall here, of which we showed about a 1/4 inch of movement downward in that area. And Corey may have shown people throughout the year some of the effects of that in the walls. Next, we went to the complete south corner and around and across over to the south exit in the center of the building, and we dropped anywhere from an inch up to 3/4 of an inch through that south side of the structure. Basically, that's all of that we show at this point. If there's if there's any other things that we need to talk about, let me know, but right now, we, as far as the time I spent here on the last elevation, the structure itself appears to be in a safe condition at the time I shot the elevations. Beyond that, in the future, I can't really tell you what may or may not happen. Any questions?
No? I don't think we have any questions
Oh,
right now.
I have one.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
I'm sorry. On the back of your, the top page of your letter that stated the 8th of this year, it says cost to buy a few more years, 190 to 220,000. And then at the back in our board information, we have, you know, the total cost depending on different options we did, which kind of at that point would be like worth buying a new building. But the cost to buy a few more years, what do you mean by a few more years? What does that mean in terms of quantity, and what happens after that?
So, those are, I can't really tell you what more years are. That's really up to you to decide what's good for you guys in the school district as far as like safety-wise, walking the halls. Obviously, you know that when you walk from the east side to the west side, you can feel a drop in there, but my assumption is everybody's safe, they walk through here safely, you're not gonna have any issues. So what I mean by that is, from the date that I shot the elevations, I don't believe that there's a safety issue from when I took the elevations and evaluated it at that date. So when I state, you know, cost to buy a few more years, I put a value to that because that's the minimum I think that should be done if you're going to do something.
Right, okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, it does.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any others?
So I think we've talked about this before, but how do you say, what's causing this, and how common is this in buildings of this age?
Drought.
Kansas weather.
Yeah, and the more drought we have, and since the last time we shot it, our drought in Kansas City was extended even this year. We didn't see much movement until about the end of September, and then all of a sudden, the phone starts ringing off the hook. So we had extended drought in the Kansas City area. My assumption that part of that was probably here as well. And so the more drought we have, the more the soil dries out and it can't support the load under each column, which is your load-bearing piece. You know, so each column is where all the load, the roof load, the wall load is sitting on those columns down to the soil, and if that soil can't support it anymore, it's gonna drop. But it's common, very common, and the older the structure gets, the more movement's going to occur.
Okay.
I have a question about that. 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't know anything about construction or building.
Sure.
I'm not the hunter, I'm the gatherer. But for these buildings, is this just something that's going to happen to any building in Kansas with the weather being what it is? Is there any way to build new buildings so that this isn't an issue anymore? I'm wondering if that's something that's different depending on when a building was built, or if that's just baked in.
So it depends on the type of soil you're setting on. You know, as we go, I'm from the west. I'm from western Kansas. So the farther you go west, you're on sandy soils, which is the most compactable product that you could set on. We're from here moving east, we get into more clay, silty clays, and very expensive clays, even up to the North Kansas City area. So the reason why these things occur is because of the clays that we set on, and as they dry out, shrink and swell. So we get a lot of the shrinking and swelling going on in Kansas City. We can get 2 inches of heave in basement floors, where maybe here you might not get that. I don't know for sure. I've done work here, but I haven't done extensive work in the Emporia area. So yeah, soil determines all of that for us.
All right, thank you for the education.
You're welcome.
So
more.
basically what I'm getting is the building's not condemned,
No.
but it's not great.
It could be better.
Right, okay, okay. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Take care. Have a good one. All right, so one thing that I wanted to clarify too is we're strictly talking about the columns in this. He and I were talking about the stringers between the columns. We did not look at that at all. So it's highly likely that if we go to, say, lift it, instead of just try to put it in an arrested state of falling further, those would need attention as well. We have not looked into that at all. That is an X factor at this point. That would possibly need more work in the future. This looks strictly at the columns, so that's what we're talking about is just the uprights.
So when we look at the page here at the very end with all the options and the total estimated cost, it's actually going to be more.
It could
If we
be.
went down that route, because we haven't looked at that aspect of it yet.
That has not been looked at in any regard, as far as what it would cost or if it's going to be impacted.
Thank you.
For the options, the option one is where we would just try to stop it from going down further. And that's his 190,000 to 220,000. We have about a $10,000 consulting estimate that he would consult another person to just make sure we're on the same track. In addition to engineering, which I was not able to get a hold of anybody for engineering to get some costs on, but I'm working on that. I can tell you from past engineering stuff, that starts about $20,000 and goes up from there, depending on what all you need drawn out. So we do know that the roof over that section needs redone. We'll need to redo that no matter which option we do. But we don't want to do that till we know what we're doing first. That's going to be between $250,000 and $325,000 for that section of the roof. Doors, I made assumptions that we would like to try to keep the historical values with the frames and everything and the doors that would match. To redo all those, to square them back up so that at least from the outside it looked like our building was square, even if it wasn't. I'm coming up at $105,000 for all the doors that we would have to reset and, like I say, taking that extra time to try to make it nicer and not using new materials. Windows, we know those windows over there pretty much all leak, so if we're gonna be doing this, we need to do the windows over there as well. Another $100,000 just for the south and west corner. There's like 25 windows. We budgeted $4,000 per window, plus or minus. We don't know what that's gonna be exactly. Some of it depends which windows we go with. The walls, you've seen the walls, they're all cracked out. If we're gonna stop this thing from falling, we'd like to redo the walls and get it to where it looks nice, doesn't have cracks everywhere. We don't know what we'll find when we demo those that will need work behind it, but we figure that to demo and refinish all the walls and any ceilings or anything that's cracked out, that we're probably looking up to $200,000 for that. Just looking at some of the other projects we've done, by the time you get the materials, the demo work, and if we're gonna be careful where we don't tear up stuff that doesn't need torn up. Again, I'd like to think we'd wanna keep it kind of consistent throughout the building instead of have a new corner and then the original stuff. Electrical, some of the electrical's on the outside of the walls, some of it's on the inside of the walls, so it's gonna have to be taken off while we redo walls and that kind of stuff. Budgeted $50,000 for that. Carpet, drop ceilings, trim, original casework. I mean, we'll salvage a lot of that. But what we can't, we don't know what that's gonna cost because we don't know what we've managed to save and what we have to get redone. The terrazzo floors, Lindell's office has a pretty good sized crack across that floor under the carpet. I don't know what that looks like. We haven't pulled the carpet up. Not even sure how we would fix it, but we would want to make sure that that was flat. We didn't have those big transitions if we were gonna stop it from going down further. So you're looking at $950,000 to just over $1 million, not counting the unknowns. That's just to stop it. The good news is, if we go with the raise it part, the known costs don't go up much because we still have to pretty much do all the same things. Some of the KC Pro costs would go up to do the actual lifting versus just securing it in place. But we may save a little bit of that in the if it's squared back up, we may not have to do as much work to get it squared up to look right as, you know, you're going around the building. But the roof is gonna be the same. You know, the doors, the windows, those are all unknowns, but we're still gonna have to budget quite a bit to get that done. The elevator around that area is, I think, 3 inches down. So if we did lift that up, the elevator shaft may have to be adjusted, or, you know, it'd be a consideration that it's an unknown. We have no way of looking at that. One issue that I want to bring up is if we do all of it, which it wouldn't make sense to me to do a part of it, because if you do part of it, you're really just leaving a lot of problems for the public to see and for us to have to deal with, is if we get to, I think it's 40% substantial renovation, we have to go to the new fire codes. Currently, we're grandfathered in with whatever fire code we're grandfathered to. This building's up to code, we're good to go there. So we want to make sure we don't do too much and have to redo the rest of the building in today's fire code. That would add several $100,000 on top of that if we got over that. So that we want to make sure that when we were planning this out, we bit off enough to get what we wanted done, but didn't take too much out there without tripping a whole nother cost that we may not have planned for. Any questions on any of that stuff?
Last time I said no other questions, you guys all of a sudden had questions.
I don't have a question on that, but besides Kansas Avenue School, which is for sale, this is probably the oldest building in the district.
They're within like 5 years of being built together.
Okay.
And Kansas Avenue isn't falling in like this one. The core of Kansas Avenue and the core of this are the same. This hallway is essentially Kansas Avenue. If you look at the stairs going up both sides, that's Kansas Avenue. I think this one's a little bit bigger. You know, it's settling some, but this one's settling more. But yeah, they're I think 1919 and 1924, or 1924 and 1929. I forget which. I think there's like a 5-year difference when they were built.
Okay.
So they're about 100 years old.
As always, I really appreciate how thorough you are with putting together information for us. Thank you for coming to us with all these details tonight. What sort of timeline are you looking at? When should we be prepared to make a decision on either of these options? Or
I would say the sooner the better, get on the calendar, right? You know, the engineering, we're gonna have to have you guys approve the engineering to have that paid for, because like I said, it's gonna be over the $20,000 threshold, so, I mean, we've got some footwork to do there to get that prepared so that we can even start the official engineering. So, you know, when you look at the timeline, it's gonna be months before we're ready for Rob to even come in and really do anything on his end. And then we have the weather in addition to that.
okay, so just hypothetically speaking, regardless of which option we go with, we would not be able to start anything till the summer?
Technically we'd have to start as soon as we could.
Right.
But as far as construction?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably 3 months,
Okay.
depending on, obviously, when people get us submissions and things.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Questions? Okay. Thank you. Yep. Okay. The next item is 6B, FY24 fiscal audit.
Mrs. Pam Stranathan, Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, will introduce Sean Gordon, CPA, to talk about our fiscal audit.
Sean's here. We got a little nervous, I have to say, but you made it. So, and I want to thank Sean. Sean and his crew came in, and this is, remember, our internal audit that we do, and his group does a great job of meeting with us, going over things with us, talking about it, and he has good news. So I'm going to turn it over to Sean. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. As Pam said, my name is Sean Gordon with Gordon CPA. I'll go through the audit report that you saw in your agenda packets and just kind of explain what you're looking at. We'll start with pages 1 through 3. This is called the Independent Auditor's Report. Here we discuss a variety of things, including the opinions we issued for the district's financial statements for fiscal year 2024. We also discussed further on down responsibilities of the district's management for its financial statements, and then a few more of our responsibilities as auditors. The most important paragraph in this section is the third paragraph down on page 1. You'll see an italicized heading called Unmodified Opinion on Regulatory Basis of Accounting. This paragraph says that we issued the highest and cleanest opinion that we could issue the district's financial statements for fiscal year 2024. So that reflects very well in the financial and internal control management by district staff during the fiscal year 2024. The next section forward is on page 4, and this is called the Summary Statement of Receipts, Expenditures, and Unencumbered Cash. Here in the left-hand column, you'll see all of the different funds of the district, and then for each of those funds, beginning cash, receipts, expenditures, and then ending cash. Down at the very bottom of that right-hand column, the district reported a little over $36.8 million on hand as of June 30th, 2024. The next section forward starts on page 5 and runs through page 13. These are the notes to the financial statements. Here we discuss a variety of things, including different accounting policies that the district follows. There's also information on long-term debt of the district, involvement in the Capers retirement program, budgeted transfers that were made. Like I said, a bunch of items discussed in this section. The next section forward starts on page 14 and runs through page 40. And these are just more detailed breakouts of those funds that we saw previously on page 4. For each of these funds, each of these pages, you'll see more detailed breakouts of the different types of revenues and the different types of expenses that take place in each of those funds. And then the final section in the audit report PDF that you saw starts on page 41 and goes through page 49, which is the end of the document. Anytime an entity receives and spends $750,000 or more of federal grant money, it's required to undergo what the federal government calls a single audit. So we perform that, and we specifically look at a few grants that the district received and spent to make sure that the district staff followed all regulatory state and federal guidelines regarding those grants. And on page 43, we talk about this in more detail. For fiscal year 2024, we looked at 2 different grants that the district spent during the year, and those were the child nutrition grants for the food service fund, and then the education stabilization fund grants that were spent also during fiscal year 24. We're also required to issue an auditor's opinion on how those grants were managed, and we've issued an unmodified opinion on that, which again is the highest and cleanest that we can issue for the district for the single audit. So that reflects very well on how district staff managed those grants. We did not have any auditor's recommendations to communicate to the board members, so again, that reflects very well on how internal controls and processes and procedures were managed by district staff. And the last thing I wanted to share, we had a very good audit, and we appreciate Kate and Pam and everybody else involved in the audit process. They did a very good job in answering our questions and getting us items that we requested, so we do appreciate that. Any questions for me on the audit report or our audit process?
Any questions?
Just great job.
Yeah,
wow,
thank you.
The highest possible.
Yeah.
Good
A
job,
plus.
us. Yeah.
Great job.
Yeah, and thank you to the business team for all of your hard work on this as well this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is 7A, Emporia Middle School Enrollment Course Guide for 2025-2026. This is the second reading.
This is a second reading. If you have questions, we have Allie Waddle and we have Adrian Trujillo to answer questions, both assistant principals at Emporia Middle School. Would you like either of them to come to the podium?
I did not come up with any questions from last time to now.
Okay.
I don't know about anybody else.
No. Okay, if there are no questions, this is an action item.
I move to accept the changes presented to the 2025-2026 Emporia Middle School course guide as submitted.
Second. I vote yea, it logged me out, I'm sorry. Fix that.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thanks, guys. The next item is 7B, accreditation versus school improvement.
We have Dr. Ryan Cargila, Director of Assessment and Accountability, and Dr. Erica Mickelson, Director of Teaching and Learning, to present tonight on accreditation and school improvement.
Well, thanks for letting us be here tonight. We're really excited about this topic. It's really, really a fun topic. So, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about accreditation and school improvement. If you go to the next slide, essentially in Kansas, and this is something KSD's been working on for a number of years, and they refined it last couple of years, and we're into the point where we're implementing the new plan. So essentially, accreditation involves three components: compliance, which is making sure that we're doing all of our state and federal requirements; school improvement, which is what we do to ensure that we have high-quality education in our schools; and then we have the outcomes, which are the measures. And those are the three big pieces that we have to be good on in order to be considered accredited. In order, all three of those areas have a standard that we're going to meet. Some of them are done, some of them are not. So, but they'll all be a standard. We'll also have a defined measure of how we're supposed to perform, and there's lots of supports along the way. This is the first year for the new process, so we'll see how the supports work, but there's going to be a lot of built-in supports. You can kind of think of it as the state kind of describes it as a tiered model, just something for everybody. So if you go to the next slide. So the first area was compliance, and remember, compliance are the things we have to do to meet federal and state expectations or regulations. So those bullets are all the things we have to do to make sure we're compliant. And if you look at that list, like ACT, all the kids get free ACT tests. We have to provide that to our students or provide that opportunity. So that's one example of what that center might look like. Another one that I know I deal with is the early childhood. That's ASQ. We have to be at least 50% participation in that. So those are a couple of examples of things that we have to do to be compliant. Okay, the next slide is going to be school improvement.
And I get to talk a little about KESA. So this year is really our learning year with KESA 2.0, and that is the new accreditation system that we are asked to do through the Kansas State Department of Education. We have been digging in. Our accreditation and design team has been looking at all aspects of KESA 2.0. We started last year, and then we're continuing that work this year. When you can move to the next slide, Casey. The next picture or document you can see right there is the Kansas School Improvement Model, and this is the document that KSD has given us to really look at all aspects. So fundamentals, you can see, are kind of those big pillars, if you will, that we need to align ourselves, and every district across the state is doing this. Then you look at the structures, and we have been digging into all of those. We've been looking at guiding questions during the accreditation and design team meetings, lead indicators, and then also looking at the measures of progress. So every time we meet, we really dig into this document and learn a little bit more. KSDE is also guiding us through that and giving us documents to look at and really use those to know what we're expected to do as part of that process. And you can move to the next slide. You can see the timeline here. So September is when the accreditation and design team really started looking at that. And every building is represented by the administrator and then one teacher representative or staff representative. So we meet, and really Dr. Cargila leads us, and I'm a part of that team as well. And we review all aspects of this. We really have looked at reflective questions and dug into those fundamentals and those leading indicators. This year is, again, like I said, our learning year, and we're going to be building our plan. We have many times along the way that we're going to be working with KSDE on this, and then we will finish the year, if you can move to the next slide, with really building the action plan and then receiving feedback from KSDE. So the rest of this year is going to be looking into that and then seeing what we need to do to move along the process. It kind of is building the plane while you fly it in an aspect, because we are learning just from KSD along the way. You can go to the next one. And Dr. Carlidge is going to finish us off.
So the last component of accreditation will be the outcomes. And so KSD's defined 4 outcomes. The ELA and math assessment are 2, graduation rate and post-secondary readiness. And we've looked at a lot of that data along the way. I know in our study sessions, we've looked at state assessment data, we've looked at graduation rate in the past and post-secondary readiness data as well. So we've looked at that. The difference is going to be is that they're going to define benchmarks and standards and goals. There'll be a standard that we'll have to meet. Kind of like, you think of it as a rubric. Like, for example, the other day when we went to our Kansas Assessment Advisory Council meeting, they shared an example rubric for graduation rate. That's the one they're working on right now. And then we were told that it's probably going to be approved by the state board or given to the state board for consideration this month. I don't know where they're at on that, but I know that one is in the works. I think they're working on the other ones as well. The problem with the state assessment ones is that we have a new test this year. So that'll be held up a little bit in those 2. So we'll probably get those sometime next year. Probably around this time next year we'll have those as well. I would expect post-secondary readiness to be ready sometime early next year. But we should probably have graduation rate this year early. So we'll be able to share that. But there'll be standards. Like I said, a rubric is a good way to think about what that looks like. And if you go to the next slide, the last slide is kind of the expectations of what we're going to need to do every year. So this year's year 1 for us. Like Dr. Mickelson said, it's a learning year. So really this year, the only thing we're going to be evaluated on or expected to do is develop a high-quality school improvement plan. We'll develop that. We're going to Salina to meet with our cohort group on February the 6th. And then after that, we'll have 60 days or so to develop our action plan and submit that to the state. Our plan is due on April the 10th. So we'll get it done and submit it. And then in about 2 weeks, they'll give us feedback and give us either we're ready to go or we'll need to do some more work and revise. So then in year 2, what we'll do is our expectations is we'll be looking at our implemented plan. How well did it go? Did we meet our measures that we said we were going to do? Then we'll also along the way be developing an updated plan, continuing to develop that plan. And those are the 2 things for year 2. Then year 3, we'll repeat all that process and we'll also be evaluated on the outcomes. So we'll run our data, or the state will run our data against the rubric, and then we'll be given feedback on how well we did. So that's kind of what the next 3 years look like for us. We don't really know anything after that at this point, but it's pretty exciting because it is new stuff that we're getting to work on. So I think that's pretty much it. Are there any questions for Dr. Mickelson or myself?
This isn't probably a fair question, but how helpful is the state in assisting you? Because sometimes anytime you get the government bureaucracy involved, it gets challenging.
Well, we're pretty fortunate. We have monthly meetings with the accreditation design team. Dr. Scott leads that. We have webinars. We also have a lot of meetings, not a lot, but maybe a quarterly meetings or so we can go to support face-to-face. So there's quite a bit. I know Jamie Reaver is on the accreditation council now. Is that right? So she's on there too, I think. So she'll get a lot of insight through that as well. So we get a lot of support from the state. Everybody is in the same position as we are on this.
Do you have the chance, so something like in banking that I find really helpful is that there are some websites that like you can only join if you can prove you work at a bank. And then there are forums where we ask each other questions and we share our ideas. And I know that schools and teaching is all about relationships. So I know you all have friends in other districts and that you can reach out to them via email and things like that. But I didn't know if you had like a forum or groups where you're able to just kind of bounce ideas off of each other that that you found helpful.
Can we talk about this? So yes. So the ADT team at KSD, led by Dr. Scott, offers monthly office hours that we can join and get help. I mentioned a little bit ago that we're going to Salina in February to be part of our cohort. Our cohort is with Salina and Hayes, and we've actually been working with that cohort for quite a while. So those are people that like I would go to talk to. A lot. I have somebody that's in a similar position in both districts that I talk to, and we communicate quite a bit with them. So yes, we do.
I would like to add, so when the state was going to just partner districts and really not necessarily look at like districts, and that was something that we were concerned about. We are thankful that Salina requested that we continue to work together because we have a great learning partnership with those other two. So the three of us have a great opportunity. So we're very fortunate to be able to work with Hayes and Salina still.
Just to clarify, so the plan that we're submitting by the 10th, that's when you'll have identified the measures that we're working on. Do you have like measures in mind right now, or you think after that February meeting you'll know?
Probably after February is a better guess. Right now, we're just really working on those guided questions right now,
Okay.
looking at digging into the structures and understanding where we're at as a district in those areas. Once we start developing our plan, we'll have to define, the state calls them MOPs, measures of progress. We'll have to define one for 6 months and 1 year. We really haven't done much with that yet because we're kind of at the point of we're working on our plan. That will come.
Okay. And then just one other question. So what role do individual buildings or teachers play in this process once it all gets going?
So the individual buildings, so this is a district accreditation. That's the key, it's district-wide. So we have, as a district, we develop our plans. So the buildings also have their individual school improvement plans that support our district plan. They also support our strategic planning as well, and they align to our district goals. So the buildings don't necessarily have a plan like this, but if you look at their plans, there's going to be things in there that tie back to the fundamentals. And you can find those pieces in there. And one piece that we have to do as far as our elementary schools as well is remember their title. So we're required to use Kansas Star and the Wise Ways and meet the requirements for title, which is one of the compliance areas that we're required to do. And when you look at the title piece, I think is the last one, part of that compliance is using Kansas Star and having a plan in there. So we make sure we hit that.
So talk a little bit about the meetings, ADT, so the accreditation design and the groups that make up that, because we have teams from every building that attend and are involved in that.
Yeah, so our ADT meeting, and Dr. Mixon mentioned this a little bit, but our ADT meeting, each building has an accreditation chair, which is unique to us. We've been doing that for a long time. If you look back, when I was a teacher, we had accreditation chairs or NCA QPA chairs. We converted those to accreditation chairs, and those people do a lot of the work of keeping up the school improvement plans. At our elementary schools, they do a lot of work adding to the Kansas Star, making sure that's up to date and good. So every school in the district has an accreditation chair, and they're actually given a stipend. And then the other part of the group is the building principal. So each school has two, and that's where we do a lot of this. A lot of this work is done in that meeting. So that's kind of the makeup and things that we do. This year, we focused a lot on that Kansas improvement model and really learning that. Last year, we had the fundamentals. So we got really good with the fundamentals. We knew those. This year, we got the structures, and then eventually, we're going to start working on the measures of progress. So we do a lot of collaborative work in there. We use a lot of adaptive school strategies to make sure everybody's voice is heard. And we document a lot of things, and we put things into summaries. So everybody has resources. So that's what our meeting looked like. And again, that for us, that's unique. Our other districts in the state don't necessarily have that, but that's something that we've continued since the NCA QPA process. It's good. I think it's a good model that seems to work well.
Great. Other questions? Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Item 8A is board reports. Do we have a report from the Rec Commission?
Yeah, just very briefly. Our previous executive director's retirement has since passed, so the interim executive director now is Amanda Gutierrez. We have since taken action to post that vacancy on the corresponding Kansas Parks and Recs and the National Parks and Recs job board. I've not heard if you've got any applicants in yet, but if you know of anyone who's qualified for that, please pass that on. There's not much more to report. We've got some improvements we're going to do on the rec center building. I think, as we all remember from last time, the steering committee paused the project to obtain a new rec center through a sales tax ballot question, but they are still meeting. I think the steering committee actually meets tomorrow. And then the next meeting of the Rec Commission was moved to Tuesday, the 21st of January because of Martin Luther King Day. And that's what I've got.
Wellness Committee?
Yes, we met right before this meeting and just met with the members of the committee, went over all of the upcoming spring activities, the ones that are required and then the ones that are optional. went over some deadlines that you just have to constantly remind people what the deadlines are for submitting things. Upcoming dates of biometric screenings, the upcoming spring wellness activity, which is a trivia night, which seems to be highly anticipated, as always. And then just doing some brainstorming for future activities and just trying to get our ducks in a row because Heather is out on maternity leave as of the end of May. So we're kind of on the countdown to that, but it was a good meeting.
Thank you. The next item is Resolution 2025-1, establishing regular Board of Education meeting time and place for 2025.
Unless there's any discussion, is there? Oh, okay, then I'm going to move to approve Resolution 2025-1, establishing regular Board of Education meeting time and place for 2025 as submitted.
Second.
Motion passes 5-0.
The next item is board representation to committees/boards for 2025.
This one, we can just go through line by line and make
Okay.
sure that we have everybody appointed and then approve the annual appointments altogether.
Okay. Do you want me to go through the part under administrative content or the attachment? Okay. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, the first one is the technical college, and Leslie, you'll stay on that for the next couple of years. And then the rec commission, Jeremy, same with you. Your term is through 2028. That feels like really far in the future. Yeah.
Well, you know, I have to run for office again at some point,
Right.
so we'll see what happens.
Okay, so then the ones that we are making a decision about tonight, starting with the Joint Economic Development Advisory Council. Grant was interested in staying on that committee. Art is also interested if Grant does not wish to continue.
I would be interested in continuing.
Okay.
Art was interested in like everything. So,
Does Art have a committee?
I don't think he does right now because of all of his KSB duties that he had. So prior, anyway. If you're okay with it, I'm willing to let him have one of our insurance committee spots. Sorry, I'm jumping. I just want to talk about Art since his name's on here so many times. I don't know
Yeah.
how much you love insurance committee.
I kind of feel good with the insurance committee. If you're really burning to stay there, though, I can mix it up, possibly.
That's okay. He can have my spot there.
Are you good?
IBB's pretty busy,
I was
so
going to say, because then you still have
Yeah.
a committee, so you're
Yeah.
actually getting away with less work.
maybe.
Go Leslie.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, so Grant, you're interested in JDEC? Yes. Okay. The next one, we probably need to clarify what's going on with interest-based bargaining team. We have a representative and an alternate. So Leslie, you are serving on the IBB team in 2024. Jamie was the alternate. What are you wanting to do?
I feel bad because she's not here. I think last year she had expressed an interest in being the primary. I've been the primary 3 years in a row now, maybe 4. Always, except for the year that Doug was and I was the alternate. So I would be willing to step back and be the alternate and still come to all the meetings, of course, if Jamie really wants that, but I don't know because she's not here. Did she happen to email you?
She just said that she was interested in staying on the committee.
Okay.
So I think she would be glad to take the
Okay.
primary role.
Then I'll let her be the primary if she'd like to be.
Okay. And you want to stay on as the alternate?
Yes, I would like to stay on, unless
Okay.
somebody else really wants to. I didn't see anybody else's name on the list.
No. Okay. The next one is KSB Convention Delegate. I was appointed to serve as the delegate last year. All other board members are this says listed as alternates. I guess if I were not able to attend, I would be interested in serving as the delegate again this year. Well, sort of hypothetical, but. Okay, number 6 is the Board Policy Review Committee. I am also on that committee for this year. Art was also interested in that one, but do we want Art to do insurance instead? Was that the consensus?
I mean, maybe he wants to. I don't know.
He just said he was willing to take on whatever except for IBB.
Imagine that.
That's why I put his name on all of them.
I mean, I'm kind of interested in staying on policy committee. I've enjoyed doing that.
Okay.
Wellness. Jen, you had your name for that one? Okay. And then insurance.
Jeremy and Art, I think would be good. I'd like to stay there.
Jeremy and Art, is that what you said? Okay. I'm going to read back through these just to confirm, and then if you want to vote on them all together, how does that sound?
Yep.
Okay, the Tech College and the Rec Center will stay the same. JDAC will be Grant. IBB representative will be Jamie, alternative Leslie. KASB delegate will be Lillian. Board Policy Committee, Lillian. Wellness Committee, Jen. And the Insurance Committee, Jeremy and Art.
Okay. Someone should make a motion if we're cool with this.
I move to approve the annual appointments as submitted.
Second.
Thank you, Casey.
You're welcome. Motion passes 5-0.
The next item is 9A, executive session, consult with an attorney.
I move to enter into executive session for 20 minutes for the exception for matters which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship under the Kansas Open Meetings Act, and that we will return to open session in this room at 7:08. Thank you. Superintendent Dr. Allison Harder and attorneys Tammy Samoji and Mike Norris are invited to join the board for this session.
And, sorry.
Motion passes 5-0.
I'll take a motion to return to regular session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion passes 5-0.
I'll do it.
Okay.
I move to enter an executive session for 20 minutes to discuss potential property acquisition pursuant to the exception for preliminary discussion of the acquisition of real property under the Kansas Open Meeting Act. And we will return to this room at 7:30 p.m. Superintendent Dr. Allison Harder and Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, Mrs. Pam Stranathan, are invited to join the session. No action is anticipated.
Second.
my gosh. Yeah.
I motion to return to regular session.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, item 10A, future board calendar dates. Our next board meeting will be Wednesday, January 22nd at 5 p.m. This is our dinner with student council at Emporia High School. And then we'll have our board meeting at 6 p.m. and we'll stay over at the high school for that meeting. Our first meeting in February is February 12th at 6 p.m. here at Mary Herbert Education Center. And then our next meeting, the last week of February, February 26th at 6 p.m. here at Mary Herbert Education Center. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, everyone. I hope everyone has a safe drive